That's right. Tales from the Crypt style.
I had to do it. Sorry.
No, I love that. That's a perfect way to start this second horror panel here on Longbox Punk. That's me.
Yes.
I am joined by two post punks in their own right. We have Eric DaSilva, Danger Squad over here, and then down here, the very first post punk, Jay, Mike Donohue. Thank you both for hanging out. We've got Damien Beckton joining us soon once he is back from the family things that he had going on prior to this, because family comes first. But I'm excited to have both of you on because I know both of you love horror, and when we talked the first time respectively, we had a lot, like, horror just came up naturally. So when I was putting together and thinking of putting these horror panels together, you two are obvious choices. And I think we have three people here. So all three of us, I think, are going to be able to just have a great time. And then Damien will come in and it'll just be a ripe, good conversation about horror, about comics, full of laughter, because that's what the show is all about. So thank you both for hanging out with me on a Sunday evening, or whatever time anybody's listening / watching to this at whenever they're watching / listening to it. So I want to know, as we get into things, we'll start with a really easy, super laid back question for both of you. What movie or what medium is it that brought you into horror, and what was it?
I'll say this: horror movies, I feel like, would be the natural pivot. I think my earliest experience to horror was Abbott and Costello Meet.
Okay.
Wolfman, Frankenstein, Dracula. I was like, who are these dudes? And then seeing more of like the classic Universal black and white horror movies. And then as a kid, was it the stories that tell you they're scared of the dark? I forgot what it was.
So, Are You Afraid of the Dark?
No, not Are.
No.
Series.
Okay. Oh, Scary Stories.
Yeah.
Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Yes.
That was like, when I read that, I was like, whoa, this is way creepier than Abbott and Costello Meet the Wolfman. Yeah. And that became my full divulge. And then, of course, getting to all the movies that you shouldn't see at a young age that totally saw, like Nightmare on Elm Street, The Dream Warriors. Great movie. Maybe not so much when you're 9, but that's where it happened. And I was like, I don't know what any of this is, and I'm too scared to go to sleep, but I want more of it all the time. And that was like how I got into horror.
That's awesome. What about you, Jay?
Probably fairly similar. It all just kind of blends together. But I remember reading, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I remember reading Goosebumps, watching Erie, Indiana, the Goosebumps show. Sneaking sometimes Tales from the Crypt. God, what else? I'm trying to think. A little bit of Stephen King peppered in there. I think I got him into when I got older. God, I just remember, watching The Howling, Nightmare on Elm Street, all these movies. And what's funny is I remember going to Blockbuster, all like the movie stores, and for whatever reason, it doesn't really make sense to me as an adult now, but my mom's whole thing was, well, there's no nudity in it, so it's okay. Doesn't matter that people are getting ripped up, eaten, killed, slashed, whatever, as long as there's no nudity. So I remember at a certain age looking and be like, all right, rated R for, okay, there's no nudity in this. Can I watch it?
It's just straight up murder, Mom. Straight up murder.
Yeah. Only violence.
And then eventually I don't think she's just like, whatever, watch, you're fine. But yeah, I remember love watching horror, but being such a scaredy cat. Like, I'd be in my bedroom and my bed was on the opposite end of the door. So it would be like, shut off the lights, run, jump on the bed, get under the covers, pull it up overhead. Like, okay, I'm gonna go to sleep.
Yeah, good luck with that.
But I keep going, but I keep going back.
Yeah,
The Howling was a great horror series. I remember that. Also, stuff like The Fog, the OG Fog from the 80s, was so good. I remember watching The Thing for the first time. John Carpenter's The Thing. Holy crap! Like that blew my mind. I always felt like any movie that didn't give me nightmares failed as a horror movie. Like that was like I had to wake up screaming to go, oh, thank God I watched that. Like that's how if I had a wonderful night's rest, like what a waste of a movie. That's not what I want about this.
Although what's really funny is I remember as a kid loved the Howling, franchise, and like would always find like, watch the new ones and pick and choose. And then I remember probably last year I was like, okay, you know what? It's been years. I'm going to do a rewatch of this series. Because I think they were all on like Prime or something else. And then once you get past the first one's a classic. The second one is great just because it's so batshit crazy. You're just kind of like, what is going on?
Yeah.
You're just you gotta love it for the insanity of it. Then the quality kind of goes downhill, and that series just kind of goes wherever it wants to go. I enjoyed the experience, but I can't say I loved all the movies as much as
I used
to.
Absolutely. I will say Howling 1 is great. Howling 2, right? It is such an insane fever dream that you're just like, okay, I'll watch this. I will say a lot of people sleep on this one. Silver Bullet is a great werewolf movie.
Oh no, I love that. Any movie where you have a werewolf pick up a bat and beat the person to death instead of eating them. I mean, you can't beat that.
Listen, any movie that the entire premise is like, how do we survive the werewolf in case the silver bullet doesn't work? Don't worry, I have a rocker-powered wheelchair. I'm in. That's all. That is fantastic, and do more of it. Where's that action figure? That's what I want. Why a silver bullet? The wheelchair you pull back into here, the click, and you let it go.
Oh,
yeah, I want that.
That would be
That's
amazing.
What I want.
Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, just that's the biggest thing I remember this best is to have all this fog, and it's very Jaws-esque because it's like people are walking through, and then you just see them dropping down in and disappearing. And then just to see a guy hit the werewolf twice, disappear, and then the werewolf hand comes up and hits him with the bat.
That is a very petty werewolf, and I'm here for that. I'm very much like, yeah, let's do that.
I need that in more like horror monsters of just the like, you're gonna do that to me?
Oh no, that's it. Very sassy werewolf. Of course.
Yeah. Adding that to my list because I have never seen that one.
Thank me later. Silver Bullet is solid, dude. So
cannot
good.
Wait.
I mean, Gary Busey is a lovable drunk uncle.
It is the only time in any movie that Gary Busey has come off as sweet, competent, and normal. That is crazy. That is. He should have got an Oscar.
He's towing a line for normal, but
in the 80s, he clearly had a drinking problem, but it was manageable, hence normal. That's where
right. Yeah.
Fair enough.
You got to give that for that time and place kind of leeway for it.
Yeah.
Nowadays,
Context matters.
Then perfectly fine.
Okay.
So I love to circle back because something that you said is something that I was also going to say. Goosebumps, like holy cow! I forgot until I was at like a thrift store and I saw a Goosebumps book and like the whole back cover was ripped off and I'm pretty sure some of the pages were gone. So I was like, I'm not going to spend the $1 on that because I want to read it. But I remember checking out like every Goosebumps book that were in my school's library. And then my buddy Dan Duran, wherever he is, I hope you're doing good, had like all of them. And so if I couldn't find it at the library because it was deemed too inappropriate or whatever, I could just go to Dan's house and like borrow one of his. And I loved those books. And then seeing that R.L. Stine is now doing comics is just like full circle. I just think it's wonderful that R.L. Stine is writing and not just writing more Goosebumps books, but like now doing comics that are also in the same vein that those Goosebumps books used to be.
I don't know. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I love the Goosebumps books. I think I sadly traded them away because I was dumb at some point when I got older. But I think I had them all. I remember them being at the grocery store checkout. And I was looking if the new one was out, asking my mom or my grandma, whoever I was, if they could get it for me. I think that was one of the few things where it was the easiest to talk them into buying. Because, I mean, I'm kind of the same with my kids. Hey, can we get a book? Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll get you a book.
Yeah.
Can I have a sucker? No.
It'll rot your teeth out.
Rot your brain, not your mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But no, Goosebumps. I remember the TV show, and it's been so much fun too as my kids have gotten older, showing them that show, and the show, and then even what else did we watch? Are You Afraid of the Dark was another.
Are
one.
You Afraid of the Dark to
huge.
me was better than Goosebumps in terms of scares. Like Goosebumps was kind of
yeah.
scary. Are You Afraid of the Dark went a little harder. It was a little like, we want to kind of make it sting a little bit.
Goosebumps was always just kind of fun. There were a couple moments and a few where it caught me maybe on the younger side, but that maybe creeped me out. But overall, it was just more fun to kind of relive and see those books come to life, I think, for me. But Are You Afraid of the Dark? I remember certain ones just scaring the crap out of me.
There's a series on Netflix that my kids showed me a couple of years back, like 3 or 4 years ago, where it was like some kid with like a creepy mask that just showed up in different towns, and he would start to like narrate. You would never see him talk, but you heard his voice narrate a situation, and then it would cut away to these very scary shows and like stories. And I was like, oh, this is like Are You Afraid of the Dark level scary, but with a much more modern, and also like kind of say, if Are You Afraid of the Dark is our base, how far can we go? And they were totally cool with like, oh yeah, this kid's just gonna be disappeared forever. There's no happy ending. You could survive, but people are gonna die, and we're gonna be cool with that. And I was trying to remember the name of the show right now. Dang it! But yeah, it was really good.
It was the newer one on Netflix, right?
Yeah, it was a new one on Netflix.
God, what was it? Because my kids watched it, and it was good. It was.
Was it Creeped Out or something like that? I'm trying.
Creeped Out. Yes, Creeped Out.
Right, just Creeped Out, right? Yeah.
Because you had the I can't remember what they called him, but it was almost like this little figure that wore this like blank mask.
Yeah.
And he would go around, and you'd see him checking, like looking around at something and being close to the story, and then at the end he would collect something from that story.
Yes, that's exactly it. Yeah.
So Creeped Out.
Creeped Out. Super fun. Like, and that's how I found out my daughter more than my son. Both of them like scary stuff, but my daughter's very much like, ooh, that was the way. Like I remember, I was actually, I don't know if you've had this experience with your kids. Have you ever showed a movie to your kids that you thought was scary when you were a kid, and they watched it, goes, it's all right.
Yeah, we what did we have? And maybe they're better at hiding it than I am. I don't know, but like my two oldest are about to be 13 and 15, so they're right at that age, and I kind of got my 12-year-old to watch a few movies with me. He was excited about them. Kind of was like I showed him Poltergeist, and for the most part, he seemed pretty like, hey, that was pretty good, except for the face ripping scene. That scene, he was like, oh,
yeah.
But he watched The Conjuring, and he was like, yeah, that's pretty good. I'm like, what are you talking about? That creeped me out as an adult.
I just saw The Conjuring again like 2 days ago, and I was like, whoa, this is so much better than I remember. Like I was all in it. So the fact that you're still like, yeah, it's all right. I was like, no, it's
no, it'll mess you up.
Like, dude, just that whole thing where it's such a practically effective scare, which is the hands that come out of the dark, clap, and then the match still goes off. That is such a simple shot, but it's so well executed, and it just hits you in that moment. Like top 10 shots of something genuinely scary without it being like a shock value is that scene. So your son is obviously made out of sterner stuff, because I terrified.
But we watched recently. We did Lost Boys and we did Fright Night. They both seemed to like them. The one, God, I'm trying to think. The one that I think I was crushed though, I remember when my middle son finally got old enough, I was like, okay, I'm going to show you the Monster Squad. This is my all-time favorite. I'm like, you're going to love this. It's going to be amazing. And he watched it, and I was like, what'd you think? And he's like, yeah, it's okay. And I'm like, okay.
I'm fine.
You're allowed to have your own opinion.
Let me tell you something. I love the Monster Squad. Love the Monster Squad. So much so, shout out to K-Pop. I did her show recently, and I brought up Monster Squad, and she has packaged Wolfman Nards. As an item, super dope. Awesome. All great about it. I showed my kids Monster Squad, and they liked it, but they were more hurt of the language used against Horace. Like, why are they calling him the F word? He just likes comics. I'm like, it's the 80s. That's all kids that like comics were facts. That's how I was called that all the time. And so it's like, no, that's not fair. I appreciate you being evolved human beings. Did you think but what did you think about the monsters? Like, it was fine, but that kid didn't deserve to be bullied that way. I was like, all right, we're here in different ways now. That's all.
Oh yeah. No, Monster, man, I feel like the one bright spot of the internet is like, I remember as a kid watching Monster Squad and couldn't find it anywhere. It would pop up on HBO every once in a while, so I'd have to hope that we were like in a free weekend, or we were affording it for a while, so then we had it. But I remember looking in the paper and you'd see, a week ahead of when something was going to go. And everything, and like seeing it every once in a while. My mom's friend, I know this is wrong of me, but I feel like I'm justified, is like, I remember I was in high school, but my mom's friend goes, hey, I was in this small video store and I found this for rent, and it was Monster Squad. And I was like, hell yes. So I got 2 VCRs and I bootlegged this. I know it's wrong. Only time I've done it, first time, last time, but I was like, I've got to. So I had that copy forever. I remember in 2007 is when it was finally, things kind of changed and it was coming out on DVD. And I remember going to Walmart at midnight because I'm like, I have to get my copy. Everybody's going to get this. I was the only one there.
You have the T-shirt. You're waiting in line.
Yep. And there's like 30 copies that are unpacking it. I'm like, I don't care. I've got my copy.
That's all you need.
Yeah. You only need the one.
Oh, yeah. So
that's awesome. I also love anybody that doesn't remember copying anything on VCR is like,
my God,
what are you even talking about?
Yeah.
And I don't want to explain it. Just let that be the mystery of what we had to do to get movies that we wanted. Because I would do the same thing where I would, there was a movie marathon on in one of the free weekends that we had, and it happened to be in October. And so we had, I think it was Showtime was free for the weekend. And I was like, well, I can't stay up all night and watch horror. So I'll just start recording this 6-hour videotape and I'll get 3 movies out of it. And so I started recording it, and halfway through the second movie, my stepdad must have woken up and like turned on the TV, because you could set, as long as the cable was on and it set to the right channel, you could record directly from cable.
Mm-hmm.
And so he turned on the TV, saw that it was on Showtime, and was like, I want this crap, and like flipped it to his like news channel. And so I missed, and so I got like a movie and a half, and I was just like, that's the worst.
Halfway through the movie, it cuts over. It's like, Bill Clinton denies receiving oral sex in the White House.
I was like, oh, still scary. Yeah,
you're like, wait. It's like, this has been on the newscast a long time. Where are the zombies? Like, what is going on?
Yeah, if it's like the perfect scene break. That's so good. So speaking of books, because I was thinking about horror as I have been all week / month / really the last like 3 months. But Jay, you just posted like your haul from Half Price Books of some of the paperback horror novels that you picked up.
Oh yeah.
And I'm curious, as someone else that like, I love going to Half Price Books, and I love finding the older books that are like in the plastic bags. We're like, this is old. We need to protect it. And I'm like, it's really not.
But it's only $2. Like,
yeah. Like
that's what's fun.
You don't need to do that. But I'm curious, like, is that like adding to your collection? Like, how do you approach when you're looking for those, or was that just like a one-off thing for you?
I wouldn't say it's a one-off thing, but I can't say I am out there necessarily looking for anything specific. It's really just kind of flipping through and like, oh my God, I can't pass this up. Yeah, I have to get that. Now there are a couple. The thing that baffles me is there's a couple, I guess, holy grails that I have that I've seen other people that have talked like, oh, I walked into a Salvation Army and just found this book. But like the Halloween adaptation, novelization, I should say, looks really cool. And I think they have 1 for 1 and 2 and 3. And The Thing is the novelization is one that I'd want to get. But I mean, you're looking at like 100 plus.
Yeah.
To get them, yeah, if you and good. And then some people are like, I think the Halloween actually could be up to $400, $500, $600.
Wow.
A lot of people, yeah, but like some people are like, hey, I found this for 30 cents at the local thrift store. I'm like, what the?
Which one?
Yeah. Yeah, keep an eye out. Get me a copy.
Right. Can I I'll Venmo you $20 right now to mail it to you? How's that for ROI? Let's get
But
so.
yeah, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go for it.
I was just gonna say, but yeah, I just find anything that's kind of fun because, like I said, I've got them right here. I'm sitting here, but like Psycho 2, there's just kind of. I was like, okay. I mean, they had The Omen. Now this one I had to pick up just because it's cool. It's The Night Shift.
Oh, cool!
It up and it's the hand with all the eyes on it.
Nice.
Awesome.
And then speaking of the Howling 2 and 3. And I was like, oh my God, I gotta get those. It's the Howling. I mean, how do you pass that up?
That's awesome. Yeah, because I do the same. Not that you can read any of these, but these are all like comic book adapted into novels. And then like Marvel and DC both were like, we can write original stories that are novels. Like there's a market for that. And then everybody bought them and then sold them to half price books. And now I'm buying them all. But they're like, there's something neat about just having those. I mean, like the stories are also very good because I actually do read them. Not that I've read any of those yet, but don't tell my wife because I need to buy more and she won't let me buy more unless I'm reading what I have. So if you're watching this, love you, babe. But, but like, there are some things, like you said, that when you see them, you're just like, I have to get that. Like that's so cool. And I'm Eric, like, have you had anything like that? It doesn't have to be a paperback. But like, is there anything, I mean, it's similar to the estate sale that you went to and snagged that Miles Morales first appearance, like, beyond like that guy, are there like regular occurrences that you have that you're just like, nope, I just had to have that in my house?
For me, it is reacquiring my firsts of things, like the first, like scary, like if I'm me and my daughter were just talking about this. I'm starting on a quest of reacquiring physical media, and I'm like, we're all streaming service now, that kind of stuff, but I want to have in hand that Blu-ray copy of the thing. So I'm trying to. Right now, my quest is I want to get the Dream Saga of Nightmare on Elm Street. So Dream Warriors, Dream Master, Dream Child. I want those 3. I want Monster Squad. I want it with the original It from the 80s. But only part 1. Part 2 is so. But just that part 1. I want to get I actually got the cassettes of all the Abbott and Costello audio radio plays. So I got that, but I want to get the They Meet This Monster, because that's how I got it. So I have all these. So I want to get the physical copies of those things, just so I have that kind of like reference media for it. As in terms of books, there are only 3 scary books that I really want to get. The Monster Ring, which is I discovered this book by Reading Rainbow, and it's about and they did scare. It was about this kid who he had a ring that every time he put it on a demon ring, and it was about this kid that every time he put on a ring, he would turn into a demon, and he would turn more and more into a demon, and finally he had to fight the power of the ring and knock it off so he could be safe. So, and I remember watching that on Reading Rainbow. I was like, man, Reading Rainbow's metal. This is just awesome. I can't believe they went this hard on this, but it made me want, because back then they used to turn the book into a little like a 15-20 minute animated movie. So after that, I was like, I want to read that book. So I read that. Stephen King did a book called Eyes of the Dragon, and it's like almost like proto Lord of the Game of Thrones with like creepy sword and sorcery all together. That book blew my mind away, and I want to get a copy of that. And then something that's not horror, but I read the physical copy one time and I loved it, the way they structured it. The Never Ending Story. If you ever read The Never Ending Story as a hard copy. When the kid is in the real world, the ink is in black. But when they go to Fantasia, the ink is in green.
Yo.
And then
that's pretty cool.
And then when the worlds start colliding, every chapter becomes a different colored text. And then
that's pretty awesome.
And I love that effect. I was like, man, I gotta get the original copy of this, or at least a physical copy of this, because just that color change really puts you in that world. And when things start getting scrambled, they become almost like rainbow kaleidoscope. I was like, this is awesome. So yeah. And one book that I was told, since I'm a horror person, if you're a horror people who do books, I heard it's great, is House of Leaves.
House of Leaves.
I have a copy of that, but I have not read it yet.
My buddy who's a big horror guy was telling me I gotta get a copy. The book is really interesting. It's a story told in 3 phases. The main story, which is in present, is about a guy who moves into an apartment building where the dude who used to live in that apartment building was a documentarian who was doing research on this event that apparently the world had overlooked or forgotten. The past experience is the dude who is a documentarian going through the process, how he got involved in this project, discovering this thing that the world forgot and how deep he got into. And then the future story is what happens to the dude who just moved into the apartment because of what he discovered. And all 3 worlds start to collide into each other. And like at certain points, you have to like flip the book around 360 to read the text because it's going all over the place. I'm like, this is awesome. So House of Leaves, I'm really excited. Just from what I heard, it sounds incredible. So I'm really excited about going through that process as well.
That's awesome. I love when books and like regular prose novels and comic books, when they play with the medium and do things like the different colored font. And like one of the reasons that I loved that Jeff Lemire and I forget his name, Dustin Nguyen, the Descender and Ascender series, is all of their different robots had different typeface, had different fonts, had different colors.
That's awesome.
For all of their bubbles. So like it was always very easy to tell, like, oh, these are humans because they're talking in regular black bubbles. And like he's just a helper android. So he's talking in black, but it's all like very robotic typeface. And yeah, the more that they introduced, the more things got crazier and crazier. And those are the subtle things that I'm like, man, that's so well done. So to hear that, I had no idea that Neverending Story had that same play.
I didn't even know either until I was reading it. I was like, this feels so, like every time I read it, I was like, I totally understand how compelling this moment is, because you're like the colors are changing, and when things start spiraling out of control, all the colors just go bananas. I'm like, it's great.
Yeah, that's rad. Cool.
Well, I was saying something similar to that I like is, and this is probably the Holy Grail book that I want to get. I've seen it a few times and just could not get it when I saw it. But I want a hardback cover of Cycle of the Werewolf, which is by Stephen King, but it is what Silver Bullet is based off of.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, but what's so cool about it, and I've read it a few times, but what's so cool about it is that it originally started off as a Bernie Wrightson calendar. And so he was going to do, the art for each month. And Stephen King was supposed to just write this little blurb for each month. So in the beginning, the chapters are real short because it's like January, and then the next chapter is February, and then March. And it's about the werewolf killing certain people each, month of the year.
That's cool.
But then apparently as he's writing it, he just kept writing more and finding a story. So then it goes from like a few short chapters to bam, all right, now you got a huge long chapter for each month. And then Silver Bullet is the adaptation of that. And
the moral of the story is cocaine is a hell of a drug, guys. It'll make you write a lot. Massive weird tangents. You never know what's going to happen next.
Yeah,
I would have loved to have been in the room where he's like writing one of the months and going, I can't stop writing. Like there's so much more here. And then turning that into the calendar and then being like, sir, we can't, this is too much.
I wonder how he even came about that, because it's like, if he was hired to write it for them, then he's, it's kind of for them, but then he'll be like, never mind, I'm doing a whole novel. Like I'm doing a novella.
Yeah, just kidding. Thanks for the idea.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the editor calling in like, Steven, it's been 3 weeks. I'm Stephen King. You don't tell me. I tell you when it happens. take my chapter.
Got it. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. That's so awesome. Are there, talking about the typography stuff, because I can't even begin to follow that Stephen King story, like with the different play of print in books, like are there things that horror movies do that have you like keeping your antenna up for when they do it in other horror movies? Like are there tropes or anything that you look for regularly?
I have 3.
Ooh,
Okay. Good.
Not type, but visual. I love shaky, jerky body motion and faces. Anytime they do like the spasm, I'm like, that is, I love that. It's so discerning to me that I just like, every time I see it, I go, I'm officially scared now. Because I know if I saw that in real life, I would punch it and run away.
I would lose my mind.
Yeah. It could be my child. I'm like, I'll talk to you later. I cannot. Sorry. Talk to me when you're normal. This is too scary.
Yeah.
Anytime you hear like a demon talk and there's almost like a reverberation, like a dark, I love like, I don't want a demon sound like me, but like real, like snooty. I want like no human voice should sound like this. So whenever you hear like that deep bass I'm like, all that I love here. Like that is one of my favorite things. Whenever you hear like a demon talk, I'm like, that's to me just check marked it. Fantastic. I also like the thing of when the monster or whatever shows up behind the person and like whispers in their ear unexpectedly. Like that is my favorite. Like, oh, they did the thing. Like I get really excited about that. Like it is my favorite. Like I'm not expecting it because it's almost the opposite of a jump scare. It's like a jump whisper. I mean that is way more terrifying because as an Hispanic dude who's had a Hispanic mom, there's nothing more terrifying than a Hispanic mom who's angry, but she's smiling and she's so speaking quiet. The words of what she's going to do to you when you get home. Like, when I get home, I'm going to beat you so bad. So that is just equates to my mom being angry. And that whisper is like, oh, that is what I picture in my head. Like, oh, those 3 get me all the time.
Got it. I love that. That's exactly what I was looking for. And Jay?
One thing I always liked, I guess this is watching like the old 80s or anything that you have a slasher, it's like you always have your prototypical, like, your jock, your dumb girl, you know what I mean, or your dumb popular girl and all that stuff. So it's always kind of fun to see like, okay, what order are they gonna die? Let me guess. I think that one's gonna die first. This one's gonna die first. And I think what my absolute favorite though with that is it's got to be Cabin in the Woods. And how it just kind of explained that and just kind of toyed with that was, I mean, I feel like absolutely genius. Especially when you have like the main girl before she leaves, she's like, oh, I just decided to dye my hair blonde because why not? And you're like, oh, okay, like cool. But then when you get there and she's like, they're all like, what is wrong with him? He's like a sociology major. He doesn't even play sports. And she's like working on her doctorate dissertation. It's like, when does she ever act like a bimbo? Like,
yeah, that was a very self-aware movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, my God, even movies that are self-aware like that without blatantly being like, oh, it's like we're living in a horror movie. But when it's still self-aware like that, it like, that's one of my things is the just knowing like, oh, this is how things go, and like calling the shot and then the shot following through. I love seeing that.
I think that's one of the reasons why I liked Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV series and Scream so much, is because they called all the things that were happening, like, no, because if this happens like this, and then that thing happened exactly that, and you couldn't even stop it. But everyone's like, oh, so this is real. This is all we can. And that was one of my most. I love when it's smart, self-aware, and not just self-aware to be condescending, but like, we know, and we know that we know, and we're gonna do it anyway, but in a way you didn't expect it, and that's what makes it awesome. Like that. Yeah. All for that.
Well, and another perfect example of that I love is Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Oh yeah,
that was such an amazing surprise for me, and everybody was like, "Oh, you got to see this." I was like, "Okay," but just to see them like, "Oh, guys, oh my God, it's these hillbillies. What are they gonna do?" And then you just cut to them, and we're like, "Yeah, we're going to our summer house. It's gonna be beautiful." Like, and then they get there, and it's like You know, like it's like they bought Ash's cabin from him.
Yeah.
But it's just, oh my god, all the things are just so amazing. Like it's like, oh my god, he's chasing. It's like, but he's swatting at bees, but he's got the chainsaw. I think my absolute favorite is after the kid tries to tackle him and he moves and he falls in the wood chipper and he's trying to pull him out, and he's just like, I think they've got some kind of death cult going on. What's going on?
You know what movie does that? I saw recently is a Totally Killer.
Totally.
I haven't
don't
seen
know
that one. That's the one with Kira Shipkin.
Yeah, the girl from the scary adventures of Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Yeah.
Or the Terrifying Adventure, something like that. The whole thing is, it is a Scream send off mixed with Back to the Future.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And there's a great part. This is not a spoiler, not spoiling it, but she gets sent back in time, which is what the Back to the Future portion, and she goes to the cops because she's trying to stop these murders that happened in the past. And she's like, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" And she goes, "Have you ever seen Back to the Future?" And they're like, "Not yet, but I'm gonna see it." And I'm like, "That's great."
So are it seems like the self-aware but also the comedic leaning horror movies, like those seem to be, those and werewolves seem to be the hot topics. Are those the like subgenres of horror that you both tend to seek out?
I would say I don't tend to seek out, but they stick out more because when you are doing something scary but funny, you get to have fun with the fact that we all love this and we all know more or less what we're going to do. But let me see if I can kind of trick you into not expecting this, or lean into the fact that you think you know what's going to happen, play off that trope, and then reverse expectations on what you're going to do. I think that one of the first movies that did that really well instead of Scream was A Final Destination. They played with that, like, oh no, oh no, and then boom, and then when it hit way more brutal than anything you thought was going to happen before, and leading to that idea of like, how gruesome can we make this murder? How ridiculous in the situation can we do it? And it still played straight. And so every time, like from Monster Squad to Scream to even Totally Killer, when you have fun with the trope, when you know we all know the thing, what can we do differently? What can we do unexpectedly? Can we make you laugh and then scare you? Can we scare you and then make you laugh afterwards? That play on like what feeling you should be going through is one of the best ones you experience. And I think it sticks out more because being scared, we all get scared of number one things, but if you can make someone laugh and be scared, that emotional resonance stays with you longer. And you can even tell people who aren't horror movie fans, oh, you like comedies, it's scary, but you go like this. And people who are horror movie fans, like, it's scary, but it's going to make you laugh. So you get both sides.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think if you can do both, that's kind of the same. That's what makes it stick in my brain. I mean, you've got, I didn't see the second one, but at least the first one, like Happy Death Day, you know, and I just love that it was such a interesting way to blend two genres and to blend two ideas. It's basically like, hey, let's put Friday the 13th together with Groundhog's Day, and you're like, what the how would that work? But then you watch it, you're like, oh my god, that was amazing.
Yeah.
I think sometimes too, when the premise itself, when it's so outlandish, you're kind of like, how the hell would that work? Like, that can't work. And then when it does, you're like, that makes it just stick in your mind so much more because you're like, oh my god, they pulled it off. You know, that's amazing. And I can't say I can remember any that, you know, and it's funny because you said werewolves and we've talked about that. Like, I think American Werewolf in London is the last one I can think of that was like really went comedy in places, and then when it went horror, it was like, oh my god, like,
yeah,
just like shocking. Because like generally, you know, like Cabin in the Woods, Tucker and Dale, I mean, a lot of them will have like moments where it's, you know, ha 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 ha, oh god, like, you know, that went gorier, that went much darker than I was expecting. Like, where the hell did that come from? And so, you know, they're surprising, but I never felt any of them have I been, you know, scared or like nervous. But like American Werewolf in London, that's what I'm excited. Probably I'm kind of contemplating showing my boys here soon. It's just like I mean, you had that beginning moment, obviously, you know, after David and them are attacked, you know, by the wolf, and but then like the dream, like the nightmare, everything after that, you're like, okay, this is like almost like a romantic comedy. Like, okay, that was like, what the hell was going on? Okay, that was, you know, it's almost so crazy. It either breaks your brain or makes you laugh. But then like just that moment, and even though me and my friend kind of make fun of it now, but just that moment of him being like, yeah, okay, I'm around this. Oh my God, what? I mean, you're like, what the? And then, I mean, the transformation, you know what I mean? It feels like you almost feel his pain, like, ooh, hearing the bones crack, and you know.
That's one of the most brutal transformations that I think I've ever seen, like in any werewolf or therianthropy. There's a big word for you. Movie is that one, because it's like they don't just, you know, show the shadow and he gets bigger and is, you know, doing all of the spasming and stuff. They're like, here's the arm and there's the bone that popped out. And it's just like, oh, geez. Yeah.
That movie misses. Oh,
I was going to say, and even if you go with like The Howling, that was, you know, the same year, or at least a year apart, like it was a super impressive transformation. And a lot of them were like, have been super great. Some not so much, but like it felt like, especially if you go with The Howling, the guy liked being a werewolf. They liked being a werewolf. You know what I mean? So like it was more of a, you know, a relief to them when they were changing. So then, you know, seeing him transform into this monster, okay, you know, that's to me, it didn't feel as horrifying versus like, you know, David Naughton when he's in American Werewolf in London, when he's just this normal guy and does no idea what's going to happen to him. You know, just starts just convulsing, and his arms and everything, you know, his bones like breaking and snapping and I mean, it's just like, ooh, like you feel bad for the guy.
American Wolf in London is constantly screwing with you so much that as soon as the movie ends with him dying, they hit you with Blue Moon out of nowhere. Blue Moon, oh, this is the happiest song from the saddest moment. That jump, you're
like, well, and you feel so bad, because you're like, it's this very tense moment. She's like, David, and you think, okay, maybe he recognizes her. Then they shoot her, and then he's just laying there, and then just bong da bong da bang da bang bang da ooh. You're like, whoa. Like, okay.
I remember watching that movie the first time. I go, what am I supposed to feel right now? Because I want to laugh, but I'm sad, and all this is weird. Like it was great. I love it. You know what movie got me over my fear of werewolves? Teen Wolf. Teen Wolf got me over. I was like, oh, you know what? They're just like us. They just want to play basketball and go to prom. That's all it is.
They're just like us.
they just want to drink. They just want to shotgun beer and van surf.
Van surf, yeah, totally. Because if you remember, that first transformation did feel a little intense. Like when you see Michael J. Fox, there was that air of like, oh God, what's happening? And all that. And you're like, oh. And then when you see him, you're like, he's scary, but he's not that scary, but you're kind of scared. And when he opens the door and his dad's there, you're like, ha ha. And it's all, and you take the edge off. Like, that's how you learn to kind of love werewolves a little bit. It was Teen Wolf.
That's awesome.
It's funny. Well, especially the fact that like they made it funny that when he would transform, he got a little too worked up. You know what I mean, with the girls around. Like, oh man, I'm a werewolf now.
Yeah, I'm an uncontrollable animal.
Yeah.
You know what movie also did something like that? So did you guys ever watch Facts of Life? That sitcom Facts of Life.
Yeah.
So the girl who was sort of like the tomboy, she had a boyfriend that was like a biker dude. He was in a movie called Demon Lover. And if you want, it is great because every time he gets worked up, he gets horny, he would turn into a demon, but every time he turned into a demon, he would have different powers.
Oh my God.
And it's hilarious. And the whole thing is that he can't lose the curse until he gets laid. But the hornier he gets, the more of a demon he becomes. So he scares the girls away so he can't lose the curse.
Oh my God.
Demon Lover.
Demon Lover, man. It is a great. You want to talk about a peak 80s raunchy, scary comedy?
I've got to see this.
Demon Lover. Yeah.
Oh my
See,
God.
and that's why these are fun, because I've never heard of that before. So,
Oh, dude, I have so many of those rolling around my brain. It's a mess.
that's awesome. You know what movie I just watched for the first time? That after I watched it, I was like, why did I wait so long? Is Pumpkinhead.
Oh, Pumpkinhead's
Dude.
great.
Oh,
I
dude.
love
It's been a while. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember my buddies I remember that being a series where it might have been in its like third or fourth by the time that I found it, and I was just like, oh, it looks so cheesy. My buddy's like, no, you gotta watch it. It's Lance Henriksen. He's like the the effects are actually really awesome. The practical effects you watching are like, oh shit, like that's a legit like creepy ass movie.
Yeah.
Pumpkinhead, I'll say, was the original Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah.
Because it's just this creature that is there, and when you unlock it, it's just so you're going about your business. You're not even trying to start this thing, but you get summoned, you get caught in the middle of something you didn't even know was going on, and now you got to survive. And it's visually stunning. It's straight up scary. And these kids, for the most part, really they didn't set out. They didn't like go on invoke something. It just got caught in the middle, and it's
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Didn't they kill the kid? Maybe they killed the kid.
Yeah, because the one jackass is riding around.
That's right,
well,
they did. So they did kind of deserve it a little bit. Okay.
Well, yeah, because they killed Lance Henriksen's son.
Right.
And so he goes to somebody I can't remember and invoke. They're like, oh, we can evoke this vengeful demon.
Yeah.
And so he does, but then the problem is that he's linked with Pumpkinhead.
Yeah.
So Pumpkinhead died.
That's
he died.
right.
So
That's
the other way
right.
around. And then he's kind of like, oh my God, what did I do? Like, no, stop this. Yeah.
I gotta watch that again. Now you made me want to watch that movie again. That was really good one. Yeah.
And honestly, so we have a grocery store that's like an international market, and it's like a destination for people. It's called Jungle Gyms, and they have like a whole nerd section now that they've like expanded out. And they have, so like each aisle will be like horror on one side, anime on the other, board games, jigsaw puzzles. In the back wall, it's all Funko stuff. They have a very small horror section, but they had like these classic like 80s horror monster like bag figurines, bag clip things. And I am a sucker for blind bags. And I pulled it out, and like that's the Pumpkinhead. It's focusing on me.
Great.
There we go.
That's great.
But I was like, awesome. I've never seen Pumpkinhead. It was already on my list to watch this year, but I was like, that's the next one I watch. And yeah, I loved it. I was like, man, this is so good. I haven't seen any of the sequels yet. Those will probably come later, before Christmas, naturally, because I just keep watching horror. But I want to get the rest of my list first, but then I'm definitely going to revisit. I feel like it's going to turn very Leprechaun, because I felt the same way when I saw like 3 and 4 came out in the early 2000s, where it was like, those look real bad. And so I didn't know what to expect watching the first one, which I think might have been why I was surprised that I enjoyed it so much, which only enhanced my enjoyment of it. Because I was like, damn, this is a solid story. Like, there's revenge. There's this like mystical dark magic thing going on. There's these asshole kids that deserve it. And like, this is great. So highly enjoyed it. I also, hard pivot, enjoyed comic books. The two of you have live Kickstarters that are happening right now. Both are linked in the episode description. And so if you want to check out either of them, Jay, I think yours for Graveyard Shift ends in like 2 or 3 days, right? Like yours is ending soon?
Yes. So I think, where are we at? So it says 3 days to go, but it switched to 3 days today at 1. So really it's, I think, 3 days and so many hours.
Got it. So less than 72 hours.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah. And I mean, we had I was shocked, a huge surge, and sometimes it's difficult, and I'm sure I've annoyed, so many people over the last 30 days, 27 days, whatever. But I think Friday was crazy. We were going in, and I mean, we're sitting there and we're like $60 away from funding. And I'm like, okay, I know I'm that close. I'm going to fund, but I don't want to wait 5 more days.
Yeah.
My anxiety is going to go through the roof. But then so finally we hit it, and then we were 15 over, and then nothing. And then I went to bed, and I woke up Saturday, and we were like $120 from hitting our first stretch goal.
That's
like
awesome.
Almost like $500. I was like, holy shit.
Great.
Yeah. But this one has been like, it's done really well, but then it's really slow. And so like I'll be like, okay, I'm only 39 away from it. And then it's like somebody's like, okay, $8. It's like, okay, I'm only 31 away. I'm so close. Which I'm not putting anybody, I don't care how much somebody backs. I appreciate whoever backs, whatever accounts. But it's like, it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm $20 away. Okay, I got a $15 backer. It's like, oh, now I'm $5.
Yeah. It couldn't have been 20. Come on.
Yeah.
So tell me about Graveyard Shift, because this is a whole new horror universe that you're setting up, right?
Yeah. So I think I have planned 4 stories. I think what I'm excited about is that while there is a connective thread from the first to the fourth, you don't have to read the first to get the second. You don't have to read, the third to get the first or anything like that. Each one is going to be kind of self-contained, but obviously it will, the connective tissue will reward readers that have read, the first 3, books. But yeah, I've always loved, like, and lots of people have done, but like, Trick or Treat, and you kind of have this evil town where all these monsters are kind of around, obviously Stephen King with Castle Rock, you have Salem's Lot, you have all these, like, just this idea of this town that's just so corrupt. I just kind of always love that idea. So that's the whole thing is that all 4 stories are going to be set in Addison Grove is the name of this, the town. And I almost imagine it as like this Leave It to Beaver town. So like almost like Stepford Wives, it's like during the day, it's this perfect, idyllic little town. But then at night, obviously there's some shady stuff going on all around. And I'm excited just to kind of have this opportunity to play with some different subgenres in the horror.
So is that the plan for each story?
Yeah, like I would say one sci-fi. One is probably kind of possession-esque. One, I've got to have a werewolf story in there, and so there's a werewolf story, and that one I'm super excited. It's one that I've had the script written for a long time. It's one that I'm going to be doing with Alex Cormack because I love his work, and it's horror art, and it's one that we've have done some stuff together. We've tried to do it a few times, and just our schedules haven't locked up. So we finally have locked that up for the spring.
Nice.
2025. So that's really exciting. And what I'm really excited about Graveyard Shift. So this first one is that, sometimes I feel like you always see the same monsters. And so I was kind of playing around with, I'm trying to find a picture here real quick of Japanese mythology and everything like that. So I found this creature, and you can kind of see, this is like the first art. This is going to be on a bookmark.
That's awesome.
But
nice.
It's and I'm probably going to butcher this, but it's a Gasha de Koro. And so the whole thing about it is that it's actually this humongous skeleton that wanders around towns or in cemeteries and places, and basically it's all the bones of everybody that have died or have been not really properly put to rest to come together to form this giant skeleton.
Nice.
That's the mythology about it. Yeah, and it'll eat people. It'll grab wanderers that are going to eat them. So
that's awesome.
So this first one I'm excited because it's definitely about these 2 mob hitmen, and they come to Addison Grove to the cemetery because that's where they get rid of the mob's dirty laundry or people they want to make disappear. And so one of them finds out that he's not that nice of a guy, and he's also not very respectful of the dead. So he's going to find out what happens when you're not so respectful for the dead.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to play with this different type of monster, something that you don't see very often.
Yeah, I love that you're was there something that drew you specifically to the Japanese folklore?
I've always, I can't say I'm an aficionado by any means, but I've always liked a lot of the main J-horror stuff. Watching the original and kind of the American kind of boom you had there for a while in the late 2000s 2010s.
Yep.
And there's some classics in there's some that aren't, But I've always found folklore and monster tales from like all different kinds of ethnicities and cultures so fascinating. I love, like, even if I love werewolves, but I love like reading like how Native Americans or thing look at werewolves and how what their mythology behind that is versus other backgrounds and things like that. So I think I just have been playing around and kind of reading. Had a book about just different, Japanese folk tales and things like that, and that just kind of popped out. It seemed really interesting.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of what I went with. That was kind of my inspiration.
That's awesome. I love
Yeah.
that. I mentioned, so the first horror panel I did was with Rafael Flores Jr., who publishes through Grimcore Studios and has a currently running Kickstarter for the Return of Kamizashi #2. But that's based on a Mayan deity. And so like that ties into his heritage and his lineage. And I was telling him, like, after I talked to him the first time, I was like, that's such a unique idea to trace back your family history. And like, I know somewhere along the way, like my great to the third or something grandmother was full-blooded Abenaki. And so I was like, I wonder what Abenaki like folklore there is. Cause I feel the same way. Like, you get raised with the same mythology, the same religion, the same ideas, horror story, like whatever. And those are just your thing. And you don't think anything of it. But then you start hearing other cultures' stories and their mythology and their, warning, watch out deities and all of those things. And I just think it's super fascinating. And so I was like, so I was doing some research on some Abenaki like folklore and mythology. And I was like, there were a couple that jumped out at me. And now I'm like, all right, how do I turn this into a cool comic? Like, what do I do now? So I loved it. Like this is another thing, that a creature that's coming out of another culture's mythology.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's what I'm excited to play with. And I've always been like, obviously since I am Irish, I've always read, a lot of the Irish folk tales too. You've got your leprechauns or your fairies, you've got your changelings, everybody kind of has their own version of kind of the similar monsters. So that's always kind of interesting. But like I have a story, it's kind of, sitting on the back burner right now. I haven't gotten to it, but one of the ones from like Ireland folktales is like the Banshee. And I think I've always been kind of obsessed with that one because as a kid, there's a movie, I don't know if you guys have seen it or heard of it, it was Darby O'Gill and the Little People. It was actually Sean Connery's first movie. And I mean, he looks like young, like he's only like 20 something.
Good old Sean Connery.
So this was like from the 50s or so. And it's definitely not PC by today's standards whatsoever. But, in the Irish folklore, it's like, the Banshee's kind of like a harbinger of death. Like if you hear the Banshee, you're going to die soon. And usually not long after she shows up, and I can't remember the exact name, but like basically the stagecoach shows up that basically takes you away, to the other side. But, it's about this old man, he's kind of a drunk. He tells stories, and Sean Connery comes in because he falls in love with his daughter. Well, the guy tells all these stories that, hey, I caught the king of the leprechauns, and so now he owes me a favor and all this stuff, and nobody believes him. But then you see him go and do the leprechauns. But the whole point is, at one point the Banshee's there, and you only ever see her with her head down. Well, then in the movie, at one point she lifts her face up, and by today's standards, you're like, probably, okay. But like when I was a kid, every time I'd be like, okay, she's doing it. It's over, like every time. And the face just like scarred me for life.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. Cool. Eric also has a live Kickstarter for Danger Squad. How is that running?
It runs until October 30th. So we are about 16 days. Right now, we just hit 64%. So the first week, we just plowed through 50% right off the bat, which is exciting. Second week, it's been a little bit of a slow drip. I'm hoping to turn things around. So, Jay, I understand your feelings of like, okay, it's cool, it's slow, it's perfectly fine. Things are slowing down. And then you're kind of hoping like, come on, guys. I had like 64 subscribers. Let's make this thing happen. We got 20 people subscribed so far. We're back, so hopefully we get more out there. I will say, as a Brazilian, I can't go back to my country's history of monsters because most of our folklore is sexual, and that is not where you want to put into a comic book about kid adventures. I'm like, this is not appropriate. So I have to stay away from that. But Jade, much like you, and the book is called Danger Squad, which is an ode to Monster Squad. So I think you'll appreciate that. And I have a town where, it's very small, but these things are happening. And my whole angle is that so many weird and spooky things have happened in this town. It's kind of like the Statue of Liberty if you live in New York. Statue of Liberty is amazing. If you've never been to New York, you want to go see the Statue of Liberty. But if you grew up there, once you see it, you're like, it's there. And you don't even, so I know people lived in New York who've never gone to Statue of Liberty just because it's always been there. So my idea is that this is a town where so many weird, strange things happen from all the genres that when people see something weird, they kind of ignore it. It's like, I don't got time for this. And they'll just ignore it, but it's happening. And so these kids start to investigate. And you find out in the first book that we have going on for the Kickstarter that there used to be a danger club that started in the 1950s and went all the way to 1988. And then suddenly something happened in 1988 that stopped. And now these kids who are, this one kid specifically is new in town, and he starts to realize this is weird. And the fact that you guys don't realize how weird this is even weirder. We should investigate. And these other kids who usually turn a blind eye, now that he's bringing attention to it, they're like, we should look into this too. They start to discover these weird things, and they are told they can't be Danger Club because Danger Club ended for a reason, and they're going to make sure it never happens again. And so what happens when you tell a kid you can't do something, they find a workaround. So like, fine, we're not Danger Club, we're Danger Squad. And they set out this quest to figure out what's going on. And the cool thing about this is I love every genre of scary there is. So whether it is like the supernatural, whether it is a cryptid, whether it is the slasher, whether it's the sci-fi monster, I love all that. I want to we allusions to all these things, but I also like to think the way I'm doing it is I'm trying to think of like what is the scary thing that we know and how can I flip it so it sounds ridiculous, but when you encounter it, it's actually more terrifying than what you initially thought. So like for example, one of the and I told Chris this when I got to do a show the first time. One of the stories I have, speaking of werewolves, is I have a werewolf story, but in my world, werewolves are wolves that when they wear human clothes turn human, and so that's why they're werewolves. And so they have their own secret sub society and their own rules that the human kids have no idea what's going on, but they have to kind of figure out because they get stuck in it. One of the things that I do as a kind of like my homage to my other Hispanic Latino brothers and sisters is because this town always has weird things going on. It is the go-to destination for like spring break for all monsters and cryptids. And the monsters that lead the charge are these douchebag college monsters called chupacabros. And they are just the biggest a-holes you'll ever see in your entire life. So they're killing livestock because they're chugging it like beer. Like, oh, dude, this is awesome. And it's just a whole big problem for all the like farmers and stuff that live in the area.
Sounds awesome.
So that is the whole thing. Issue 1 is my love letter to Gremlins. So if you like Gremlins, that's a big monster for issue 1. And I already have issue 2 and 3 done. So hopefully with this Kickstarter does well and we can get to issue 2 and 3. And so if you like Monster Squad, if you like the Goonies, if you like the Gate, this is someone told me, was one of the reviewers that and Chris, you reviewed the book, so you can kind of verify like it's really fun, it's really light. They're like, I thought it was going to be scarier, and I was like, well, it does get scarier as we go along. It's almost like that slow drip. I want you to kind of feel like, oh, I can handle this, and then eventually, like around the 4th or 5th story, we up the ante, and then after like 3 or 4 more stories, we up the ante a little more. So the terror is there, but right off the jump, it's almost too overwhelming. I have a friend of mine, his son is 9 years old. I sent him a copy to kind of get his feedback. And I said, read it with your son, tell me what you think. And then 2 weeks later, he writes back, hey, the book looks great, but we stopped after page 5. I was like, what happened? It's like, my son got too creeped out. I was like, awesome. The fact that your 8-year-old son got creeped out at page 5 is a win. Because I wasn't even intending to be that scary, but I'm glad he took it that scary. Yeah. But at the same time, if you are a little bit more bold you're gonna enjoy it. If you're very scared, you'll get freaked out. But read it with your parent, read it by yourself. I've been told by like kids who read it, they really liked it. I've been told by adults who read it, like this hit me way more than I thought it was, and I was really into it. So I'm glad it's hitting on both levels. If you have a kid who's like into horror and you're gonna kind of want to has a little Bridgeport from like Gravity Falls or Scooby-Doo, this is a great way out there. And if you're an adult who is like an uncle or an aunt or a parent who's into horror, this is cool because you'll see everything that you know, but flipped it away you never expected, and you have fun with it. But then I reaffirm, by the way, this is truly terrifying when you think about it, and redouble down like that. And that's kind of like my love letter to the comedy and the horror and werewolves. So yeah.
Oh, perfect. Well, I just backed it. So.
Oh hell yeah, dude! Thank you so much.
All right, making connections happen.
Yes.
Here on the Backer Drive, let's see how you, listener, can get in on the pledge. We've got all pledges, digital. We've got
all of it. Oh, and by
just
the way,
call the number on the screen.
and by the way, for anyone who's watching, this is really cool. We have a tier that is a limited number. I think we're at 20 right now. We have a tier that it is a sketch cover, and if you buy it, the sketch cover will get drawn with a one-of-one original by my buddy, who is the character art director for Pixar Studios. So,
oh dang!
If you are a Pixar fan and you would like to have your original sketch of one of the characters on that, it's only $50, and you'll get that. So, if you're a Pixar fan, get that. It's really cool. And every physical copy of the book will come with a certificate making you an official member of Danger Squad. So, pretty awesome.
Yeah, man, you're the bundles that you've got and the reward tiers that you have some really fun, like just items that you're including with it. And I was like, yo, I can get a certificate saying I'm a member of the squad. Absolutely.
I'm not gonna lie. My favorite thing about a certificate is at the very bottom. It says, if something weird, paranormal, strange, or awkward happens, whoever is holding this certificate is automatically placed in charge.
That's how I approach life. Like, I need an adult. That's me. Oh man,
I'm an adult.
I'm the adult here.
Is your name on this paper? Then no, I'm in charge now. That's what I did.
That's so good, man. I love to like, and even reading, because I was given access, so I've read that first issue. It's so chock full. It's like Scooby, and I'm a big Scooby fan. And I love the stuff in Scooby that as a kid I was like, Scooby's funny. As an adult, I'm like, yo, Shaggy was dropping some serious hits in this. Like, you have no idea as a kid the stuff that you miss. And with Pixar movies and Disney movies, the humor that's in there for the adults that are reading it. Like, if I was still babysitting back in high school, this would be a perfect comic that I could bring with me to read to the 5 and 8-year-old that I used to babysit. Of like, hey, it's like, it's scary, but like, it's also really fun. And the characters are endearing.
One of the panels that we use as promotion for the art has one of my favorite sequence of the jokes, which is Danger Squad is surrounded by a bunch of gremlins who are wearing varied portions of clothes. In the book, the idea is the more clothes a gremlin has, the higher up in society he is. And the less clothes he has, the lower society, but that's how their social structure is. So when they're surrounded by gremlins, one of the characters named Kevin goes, is it weird that I always thought I was going to die like this? And Leon goes, it depends. Did so many of them not wear pants? And then Macy goes, and if so, then yes.
Super fun stuff. You've got all month to back Danger Squad, which you absolutely should. And if you want to see the campaign or any of the tiers for both Danger Squad and Graveyard Shift, both campaigns are linked in this episode description. So that all you got to do is 2 taps and you're on Kickstarter checking out both campaigns. Running out of time on Graveyard Shift, but you've got all month. The spooky month, you can get into the feel very easily, very early on, but checking out Danger Squad as well. Those are my official questions. As you know, like we get here and I'm like, anything you want to, you got extra stuff to add? You got more stuff?
I got one more thing.
Yeah.
I'm also a stand-up comic. I have an album out called Adorably Offensive. It's on the streaming services, whatever you get it on. So if you want, Eric DaSilva, EricDaSilva, and it's called Adorably Offensive. It's 50 minutes, and it is a great is a great album for people that like comedy. It's a better album for people who are easily offended. Send it to them, ruin their day, and I really appreciate it.
I love that. What a pitch! If you're easily offended, perfect. Jay, what you got? What you got, man?
I mean, I don't know. I will say, like I said, you know, you've already said it, a couple days left on Graveyard Shift. You know, the fun thing about it is that it also has not only, you know, Morsels and Together Forever, which are my first two books, available as add-ons, but it also has my artist Colleen Palmer has done two awesome books. It's like a Crow series that she's done. She said very much, you know, kind of like Hellboyish, kind of, you know, dark supernatural. You can get physical copies of both of her books, and then not only that, but I mean, we have a physical bundle that's got all of our books together. But yeah, you know, I'm excited to tell stories. I want to continue to be able to tell stories, and to be able to do that, you know, I gotta, you know,
Back the books.
Yeah,
Back the books.
Yeah, one of us. One of us.
That's awesome. And Colleen,
my friend says to back it.
And we should definitely listen to the Crypt Keeper.
Yeah.
I've been really enjoying Colleen's daily October like art posts on her Instagram, because
the stamps.
She carves them into like the pink erasers that you used to use half of and then lose and then buy more. She carves into that and then rolls it, like stamps it with ink, and then makes a print. That's
awesome,
bro. It's insane.
I doubt she'll give them to me, because if they're originals, I wanna talk her into selling them to me. So she did. So I didn't realize she did it. She had kind of did one for Graveyard Shift, and so that was the first time I saw it. And she was like, "Oh, you know, hey, I kind of came up with this cool idea. I was just going to stamp it because we have sketch cards that, you know, from her that she's going to sketch like our monster on." And so she was going to stamp that on there. I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." Didn't realize she was continuing to do it. Then she showed me, I think I saw like a Creature from the Black Lagoon. It was awesome. And she did another one. And the next thing you know, she's like, "Oh yeah, here, look, she's got the whole Universal monsters that she's carved into these for stamps." And then what she's been doing daily is that instead of like, you know, I guess spooky for October, it's been token prompts. Yeah. And so she's been doing like something like the prompt and carving a stamp for each one. And I think what her plan is that she's going to stamp them to make like a poster of all of them at the end. And then I think she may sell prints of that.
That's pretty awesome
on there. Yeah. Oh no. I mean, they're impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so cool to see her like sitting there kind of like playing with it. And then it's like, well, what's she going to do? And then she like puts the stamp down and you're like, pulls it up. You're like, oh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. How'd you get that into a tiny little eraser? I don't understand.
That fine tuning stuff, like, it would just drive me insane. I'd be like, oh God, I did it.
I would sneeze and
I would get angry, bite it. So
all right. I do have one more thing. I lied. I have one more thing. We got to take a thumbnail screenshot. I don't think I was doing this when I talked to either of you the first time around. But I realized like it's a lot of work to find a moment where everybody's smiling and looking like they're enjoying themselves. So I figured instead of me putting in all that extra work, I can just say, hey, let's pose, and I'll take a screenshot. So, hey, let's pose, and get my keyboard shortcut here. And let's take a
turn around.
Hey, you do whatever you want to do. Shameless plug real fast so that you don't have to keep holding Eric. I talked to Matt Kent.
No, you should have made him let us keep holding.
Just any second, I'm gonna do it.
Let's go. Wait,
oh my God. That should have been the screenshot. That should have been the screenshot.
I don't even know how that happened. What happened there?
Awesome.
Because I did this.
So there are some things that Mac has built in where if you do certain hand commands or whatever, I know a thumbs up at one point, it shoots off fireworks. I don't remember, but I was talking to Matt Kent and I was like, yeah, I take a pose and like let people, express themselves how they want to be shown in my thumbnail. And he turned his camera sideways. So like his thumbnail is him looking like his whole picture is looking down. I was like, only you. All right. You're
I need to get some glow sticks. Maybe I can get that rave going again.
I have no idea how you did that. I need to look that up though, because it happens like you're not the first person that that's happened to. So all right, I got my keyboard shortcut ready. So on the count of 3, I'll take 3. So 3,
right.
2, 1. All right, cool. All right, so that's my questions. That's my stuff. We've got the links to the Kickstarter campaigns in the episode description.
Woo.
So you should go back both of them if you're not already. And then, share it with your friends and maybe just tell Jay and Eric that you backed them and let them know that, like, hey, I was paying attention to Long Box Punk and you made such a great pitch that's such a cool show that I just loved watching it that I just had to go back your Kickstarters.
I
we
like,
can do that.
Chris, I have to say, I like how all your fans sound like extras from Labyrinth. I appreciate that. That's a really solid way. Sarah, good. Back together. It's great.
Well,
Ludo.
You just had more and more Kermit kind of creeping in there.
Yeah.
Kermit the Frog here. Like,
Had you not let me.
the book. It's so good.
I don't know how we top that. So hang tight after the end. I got some logistical stuff for you, but thank you both for hanging out. This was a blast. I love talking horror with great people, especially post-punk, especially comic creators, especially horror fans. And you guys check all those boxes. So thank you for taking time to hang out with me for another episode of Long Box Punk here on the second horror panel. We're doing them all month long. I've got a big announcement for the next one for next week. I've brought in a non-post-punk. Ooh. You'll just have to tune in to see who that person is. But until next time, punks, go do what's good for you and read some horror comics. We are out of here.
Woo.